Shocking news comes from the South Korean entertainment world. Jungkook and Jin, two members of BTS, are reported to have returned to Korea at the same time without being accompanied by the other members. This phenomenon immediately raised a wave of big question marks among fans. Why did only the two of them return? Where did the other members go? Is there a special reason behind this move that seems sudden? These are the questions that finally forced Bang Si-hyuk, founder of HYBE as well as the central figure in BTS's journey, to speak up and provide clarification that has now become the center of public attention. Bang Si-hyuk's statement appeared as a response to the wild speculations circulating on social media. TikTok, Twitter, and even ARMY community forums around the world were filled with various theories. Some believe Jungkook returned because of personal matters, while others suspect this is related to HYBE's internal agenda. However, Bang Si-hyuk emphasized that Jungkook and Jin's return cannot be seen as a unilateral or emotional decision, but rather as part of an agenda that had been carefully planned. This statement opened a new chapter in public debate. Is there really a big agenda deliberately hidden from fans? In a short press conference held by HYBE, Bang Si-hyuk stated that Jungkook and Jin returned to Korea to attend an important meeting related to the future of BTS's activities. He added that the absence of the other members does not mean there is internal conflict, but rather differences in schedules and assignments that had been strategically arranged. This statement seems simple, but instead raises further questions. Why did the so-called important meeting involve only two people? Why not all BTS members? Furthermore, Bang Si-hyuk stressed that the public should not connect Jungkook and Jin's return with personal issues or emotional rumors circulating. He mentioned that the two indeed had strategic roles in certain discussions with management. However, this statement only raised even greater curiosity among fans. If the agenda is indeed so important, why were its details not made public? Is HYBE preparing a major project that is still being kept secret? This phenomenon shows how every step of BTS always receives extraordinary attention, to the point that even simple decisions develop into big issues full of speculation. Social media worsen the situation with narratives continuously discussed without end. Some fully support Bang Si-hyuk's clarification, but not a few also doubt it. Many judge the explanation as too normative, as if it only functioned as a distraction. The question is that really the case, or is the public too quick to judge? Interestingly, Bang Si-hyuk also touched on public perception of BTS. He stated that fans have the right to ask and speculate, but should still wait for official confirmation before drawing conclusions. This remark seems to be a subtle rebuke against digital culture that tends to mix facts and opinions. In this context, the public is faced with a choice. Will they accept HYBE's official explanation as the truth, or continue to question the motives behind it? It is undeniable, this issue shook the dynamics between BTS, HYBE, and fans. ARMY, known as critical and full of dedication, are instead trapped in a dilemma. On one hand, they want to trust the management and the artists they love, but on the other hand, their curiosity drives questions that are increasingly difficult to ignore. Isn't it natural if the public feels that a brief explanation is not satisfying enough? Or is it actually that this dissatisfaction is deliberately maintained to create media attention? Bang Si-hyuk's statement indeed tries to close the room for speculation, but instead leaves wider space for interpretation. Many ask, why were only Jin and Jungkook seen together? Is there a symbolic message behind their togetherness? Or is this merely a coincidence later magnified by the media? These questions show how complex the relationship between reality, perception, and media narratives is in the digital era. As a conclusion, the phenomenon of Jungkook and Jin returning to Korea together, accompanied by Bang Si-hyuk's clarification, becomes a mirror of how information works in the modern era. A simple fact can develop into a global issue simply because of layered public interpretations. At this point, one important question arises: are we really reading facts? Or are we just trapped in the whirlpool of narratives deliberately built for sensation? This question deserves reflection, not only by ARMY, but also by anyone who cares about the integrity of information amid the flood of digital media. Is Bang Si-hyuk's explanation truly closing all speculation, or instead opening a new chapter of sharper questions that demand measurable clarification? Are you, as a critical audience, ready to separate operational facts from emotional narratives shaped by video clips and viral comments that are often partial? First, let us assess the basic premise. Bang Si-hyuk stated Jungkook and Jin's return to Korea was based on a pre-planned agenda, but did the public accept that statement as final truth without examining chronology, supporting evidence, and decision-making context? If that agenda is strategic, is it reasonable that its details are kept secret? And if so, why does its timing coincide with moments that trigger commotion in the digital space? Second, let us distinguish indications from conclusions. Two figures returning together does not necessarily mean friction. But does the official communication style, being brief and avoiding detailed explanation, unintentionally push the public to infer cause and effect that has not been tested? If so, should we hold back, or instead demand procedural transparency explaining who was called for what, and within what time frame? Third, consider the architecture of attention. When TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, and other platforms give incentives to shocking content, is it not reasonable that the returning together discourse is cooked into a dramatic narrative for clicks and engagement? If so, are we assessing the members' reality, or merely consuming algorithmic products that prioritize sensation? Fourth, examine the visual evidence forensically. Does the C recording that shows intimacy really capture the facts as they are? Or do camera angles, compression, and water reflections create illusions so that the kiss interpretation goes beyond the data? Have the dating, location, and upload chain been cross-checked? And if not, is it fair to project personal motives onto individuals based on contestable imagery? Fifth, reflect on the ethics of labeling. When terms like sulking or jealous are thrown without verification, are we compressing humans into narrative stereotypes that are comfortable to consume but poor in nuance? Would it not be more appropriate to wait for credible indicators? For example, consistent statements across channels or repeated behavioral patterns, rather than rushing conclusions from one momentum? Sixth, scrutinize information governance. Is HYBE obliged to open all internal agendas to the public, or is there a dividing line that protects organizational efficiency and artists' privacy? If that line is indeed necessary, what indicators are fair for the public to demand? Schedule transparency, decision summaries, or at least negative confirmation of certain rumors, so that trust remains intact? Seventh, test counter-hypotheses. What if Jungkook and Jin's return relates to project coordination or work health that is not suitable to expose? What if other members are in different duty cycles? And what if timing coincidence exaggerates dramatic impression? If these scenarios are reasonable, should the weight of reporting not be proportional to the level of evidence certainty? Eighth, be disciplined in methodology. Do we demand documents, witnesses, and decision records before deciding the meaning of one logistical step? Do we mark each claim as temporary until verified? And do we leave room for revision if new data emerges so that truth is not held hostage by popularity? Ninth, evaluate motives of consumption. Are we seeking drama or meaning? Dare we hold back and re-examine? 10th, reaffirm data status. The circulating materials come from TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, and several other dynamic media channels. Do we agree that their truth still needs verification, and that each piece must be treated as a hypothesis subject to refutation? If agreed, are you willing to suspend judgment and reject viral mechanisms that reward what is fast, not what is accurate? In the end, let us make this moment a real test of media literacy. Do you truly believe this event happened as the popular narrative says? Or do you see it as fabrication designed to hijack attention? Are you ready to change position when new evidence demands correction? And will you practice reasoned skepticism, not reckless cynicism? As a final note worth underlining, the statements and summaries discussed here are based on circulating information and have not undergone full confirmation. Is it not the wisest attitude to continue asking for clarity, testing attribution, and rejecting the dictates of sensationalism? That way, will public discourse not become healthier, fairer, and more resistant to hoaxes that divide attention?